Okay, this video will show you how to operate Pro Tools and record a basic signal into the program. So the first thing we need to do is make sure all your other programs are closed. So I'm going to go ahead and close Safari, and I'm going to open up Pro Tools. I'm going to click on the Pro Tools icon, and that's about as fast as it should come up. If you wait more than probably 20 seconds, then you probably need to force quit it and restart the computer. That's just one of the weird things with recording programs. There's troubleshooting issues with them. But that started up pretty quick. This is your quick start area. Now if you want to create a blank session, you go to this button right here. If you want to open a previous session, you can go to these two buttons here. But we're just going to show you how to create a session. So we go to audio file type right here. You have two choices, AIFF and WAV. We always choose WAV. Bit depth, 24-bit. Sample rate, 48 kilohertz. And I/O setting, just go to stereo mix. Now I always use stereo mix, so if you ever went to last use, it would most likely default to stereo mix, but you go ahead and you make sure you click stereo mix, because you never know if the person before you had a different input-output setting. Okay, once we have that done, hit OK. It wants you to name the session and save it in a location. Let's go ahead and see where it wants us to save it. It's in the 3MEF band folder of Ted McElwey's external hard drive. Notice how this is an external hard drive. It's not recording the audio onto the computer. It's recording it to an external. That's an important thing with all audio recordings, especially with digital software. You want to record it to an external hard drive because it helps CPU performance. So it's in the 3MEF band folder of the external. We're in concerts. Most likely, if we're doing it in the band hall, you go to the auditions folder, and you can go ahead and, let's say if we're auditioning just one person, let's go ahead and say, let's give it a date, 23 February 2012. You always want to put a date on there. That really helps you find the location of folders. And let's just put in John's audition. Okay, and we're just going to save it there. And the first thing it does is it opens up the window. If you hit Command or Apple, it's the button just to the left and right of the spacebar on your keyboard. If you hit Command plus, it cycles between these two windows. This window that you see right here is the edit window, and this is where you're going to do most of your work. Now you want to create a track, actually multiple tracks. To do that, you can go through all these menu options up here, and if you want a new track, you can go to new track, and this also helps you find out what your keyboard shortcuts are. If you go to all these different menu options, these are your keyboard shortcuts. So pay attention to all these, especially here. You have a bunch of keyboard shortcuts. That's the Apple or Command sign. Much different than on a PC where it's Control. And the reason I'm big on keyboard shortcuts is because you don't want to always have to go up to this file menu and insert in things. It takes up time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go Shift Command N. And this is where your new track window pops up. You have a couple of choices. Say it depends on how many tracks you want to record. Most likely you're going to do two. If it's two, you can do either stereo or mono. Let's do mono, and there are going to be two audio tracks. Now that's the first thing you need to do. Let's go ahead and add another set of tracks that we can make. Now audio tracks aren't the only thing that we record here, that we're going to make in our edit window. Let's make a stereo. Now, it's not going to be an audio track this time. It's going to be an aux input. The importance of this one, this is where we're going to put all our reverb and delays and effects in. Next, we're going to add another row. And we're going to make it stereo. And it's going to be the master fader. This is the most important part of your mix, because you have to have a master fader. Because your audio tracks, you'll see in a minute, they may look good, but if your master fader, it's basically a combination of all the audio tracks that you have combined, and maybe the signals on each audio track are maybe halfway up, but if you combine them all, they may be overloading. So we go over here and hit create. So these are the tracks. I have 2 audio tracks, an aux track, and a master fader. First thing I want to do is I want to record. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to arm my tracks. Simple as that. And for this recording, I have the ADAT recorder hooked up. It's a previously recorded show, and let's just see what happens whenever I hit play. Let's see if we get a signal. As you can see, I hit play on the ADAT recorder and I'm already getting a signal. Let's see if I can increase the volume. Now, it's not really working there so much. Now, on the mixer, I'm not able to increase the gain, but that's all I want for right now. I can increase the gain at a later time digitally. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to zoom in, or actually zoom out, and I want to record this. Now, say we want to have it synced up to where we want. Once I find the place I want it synced up to, I hit Command Spacebar, and it starts recording. Let's make these a little bit bigger. As you can see, there's a little bit of signal in there. Let's fast forward this a little bit to where we get the actual audio. Now these signals aren't big, but like I said, we can increase them later. And for instructional purposes, I'm just going to stop it right there. And say this is the only part that I want to capture. Say this is the entire song. Let's go ahead and disarm our tracks. That's very important. And now that it's recorded, this is what you call the audio regions. This is audio 1's audio region, audio 2. Let's go ahead and take a look at our selector, where my mouse is. If you notice, if I go over certain sections of this audio region, the cursor changes. Let's go up to this part right here. If you see these symbols, these all mean something. This means it's a grabber tool, selector tool, and a trimming tool. You have this bar up here, and it allows you to combine all these. In earlier versions of Pro Tools, you would have to select each one of these, and it only works as a grabber tool. But over the years, Pro Tools decided, hey, let's start combining these things. And if you look at the far left, it's working as a fader tool. And this fader tool only works whenever you go to the upper left and right corners of an audio region. Now, if you get to the center on the side of each audio region, it becomes a trimmer tool. This helps you work much faster. Now, if you just put it in the center anywhere, you can select certain parts. So if you want to delete an area here, you can do that. And to undo all that, I just hit Command Z. And the last thing I'm going to show you is, I showed above here, if you go above this line, it works as a selector tool. If you go down below, it works as a grabber tool. So I can move it to where I want. Say if I wanted to move this over here for whatever reason. So that's basically how you can use your edit tools. It takes a lot more practice to actually move this a little bit quicker, but that's going to help you whenever you're mixing this down and editing things, because most likely you're going to record this audio region. We only recorded 2 to 3 minutes, and if it's a whole concert, it's actually going to take up this entire area right here. And you're definitely going to have edits. Now, imagine this is only like a 2-minute clip right here. Actually, not even that. It's like 30 seconds. But imagine if this is 2 hours and you have all of these squiggly lines in here. You want to find, you got to have markers so you know where everything is. So to do that, let's say this is the beginning of a song. You hit on the numeric keypad the enter button. You hit enter, and this is the new memory location. And say the song is Mood Indigo. Start. I always put the start and end of each song. So I know that's where Mood Indigo starts. I come into here. Let's imagine this is the end. I put Mood Indigo in. Okay, why this is useful, this will help you find areas quicker, but it also allows you to select things and bounce them. So I select this area, and say if I move my selector tool anywhere, if I go up to that marker, it automatically moves my selector to that starting point. And if I hit shift and click to the end, it highlights that area. This is very important, so you can, if this is the audio region that you want to capture, that's all you need to do to select it. It's not going to take you a lot of time. Now, the next thing you need to do, say this is all you wanted to capture, you want to bounce it over. So what you do is you go to File, down to Bounce to Disk. And it gives you a bunch of options here, and it usually defaults to what you want. You want it channel 1 and 2 stereo. Now, WAV, this is the file type. You have a couple of options here. The only options I really want you guys to worry about is WAV and MP3. Now, WAV is the best format, but even so, we want MP3 sometimes because it makes the audio file much smaller, and we want to basically compress our audio files so they're small enough where we can actually send them in an email. So it's best to back them up, bounce them over as a WAV file and an MP3. I always go for the WAV file first and then the MP3. So let's go ahead and just do the WAV file first. The next is format. You have a bunch of options here. No matter what, I always want you to use stereo interleaved. That basically allows it to be a stereo mix. Bit depth, 24. Sample rate, 48 kilohertz. Now, if you remember, when we opened this section, the sample rate was 48 kilohertz. You don't want to change it to a different sample rate whenever you bounce it over. It may affect the quality. So the only thing you really got to worry about the defaults is either WAV and interleaved. Other things are normal, so that you don't have to change them too much. So the next thing we do is we hit bounce. It says save bounce as. And before we give it a name, let's just double check it's getting saved in the right location. If you remember when we created this session, we put it in 23 February 2012 John's Audition. So it's already where where we originally created the session, when you bounce a file, it's automatically going to go into the audio files region, and that's where you always want it. Because you may have multiple mixes on this, maybe like 20 or so, and you want to label each one accordingly, and you're gonna see them after you bounce it show up in the audio files list. So in your other audio files, as you can see, it says audio 1, audio 2. If you make whatever edits you make, however many audio regions you create, you're going to have audio 1, 2/1/. The more audio regions you create, the more you're going to get a bunch of audio 1, audio 2 tracks, and it's going to get kind of confusing. So that's why you want your bounce to be labeled something you can easily notice. So we're going to call it 23 Feb 2012, John's final audition, and probably want to put in the piece. Let's call it Sonata 1, for example. So once we do that, we know it's in the audio files region, and it's bouncing over it. It's only going to take 3 seconds, maybe 5 seconds, and it's done, and it bounced over. Now let's go ahead and go to our Finder window. Let's go back to the external hard drive and see if it's in there. We put it in auditions. There's John's audition, audio files. See, and just like I said before, it's easier to find because most likely you're going to have like 20 audio regions that all say audio 1 and 2. But that's easy to find. It's labeled exactly how I want it. Now, just to make it a little bit more in depth, say you want to put reverb on this track. We already bounced it over. It was a rough mix, but we want to put reverb on that track. What you need to do is you go to the aux channel, and we're going to go to, this is what you call your inserts. We're going to insert a plugin, and we want it to be a multi-channel plugin. It's multi-channel because aux 1 and 2, see how there's 2 meters right here instead of the one up here. It's a multi-channel. So we go to the insert, and let's select reverb. We have a bunch of them. I always select air reverb. It sounds much better, and it doesn't really affect the quality as much. So we leave it at air reverb, and we're not going to do anything to the reverb unit just yet. Let's go back to the sends. Okay, now audio 1, we want to also send it to, whenever you're making a reverb or delays, you want to do it sidechained. So whenever we do sends, this is how you sidechain without affecting the actual audio signal. You want to send it to bus 1 and 2. So we raise, as you can see in sends, we have another external fader that shows up here, and you want to raise it up to 0. Instead of raising it up manually to 0, you can also hit Alt and click on it, and it automatically goes to 0 instead of you having to like guess where it goes. So you just bring it back down to here, and there you go. Now you're sending this audio signal to bus 1 and 2, and you want your input for your aux channel to be the exact same. So we're going to bus 1 and 2. So let's take a listen to it. Let's see if this is working. As you can hear, there's reverb on it. And let's mute this send. I've selected it, and I've muted it. See, the aux 1 isn't getting anything anymore, and it sounds dry. So I'm going to select it again, and now I have reverb. Now, let's say it's a little bit too much. All you have to do is go to this bus and just bring it down a little bit. because most likely you just want a touch of reverb. Okay, let's stop it. Now the next to last thing I want to show you is the master fader. This is the most important. You know how I said it's a combination of everything, of all your other faders. I'm going to go ahead and hit play again. See how aux 1, the level is much softer there than here. So this is actually not too bad. This is actually a lower signal than what we want. We want it a little bit hotter. So what you can do is go to a multi-channel plugin on the inserts column of the master fader, and we want to make it louder. So I'm going to go to Bomb Factory, and what this will allow me to do is increase the volume of the whole mix. This will bring it up to CD quality. So, and that's all I want to do with it. I could add an EQ to it. I can add a compressor to it, but we don't need to do that. It sounds fine. So that's how you use your master fader. And the main thing you want to think about on all of these is make sure it doesn't clip. I'm going to go ahead and hit play again. I'm going to select this again. That's what you don't want to see. So we bring it back down. Okay. Okay, so we made sure we don't have any peaks or anything, and that's pretty much all you really need to know. And remember, just bounce it over. And the last thing we want to do is we want to put this into iTunes. So we've already made the bounce, and it's already in the, where is it? Auditions folder. So we already have the tune that we want. So from here, we're actually done with Pro Tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command Q, and I got to actually select Pro Tools. And of course I want to save it. And now we're going to go over to iTunes. I'm going to click on iTunes, and we want to put this in our library. So what I do is you can go to File, Add to Library, but you're going to get into a point where you're going to do this multiple times. So remember the keyboard shortcut. The first thing I do whenever I come up to iTunes, and after I've made a bounce, I hit iTunes, I automatically hit Command O, because I know I'm going to add a file. Now, this has actually gone to the band festival from a different recording, so make sure you go back to the auditions folder, and you select out of the audio files folder from 23 Feb 2012, John's Audition, and you open it. Once you hit open, look where it goes. It's up here. Now, you always select artists in iTunes to make sure you have the right to locate it. Now, whenever you make a recording, it's automatically going to go to the bottom because you have no artist or album title for it. And as you can see, obviously someone else has been making a recording of this. And what you're going to find out, it's really important that you label these correctly in regards to iTunes. You want to put an artist on it. You want to put an album on it. Because this is the Cincinnatus March right here. This is another recording. The more recordings you do and you import to iTunes, all of these other tunes up here, they were recorded using Pro Tools. The problem is if you didn't label any of these by their album or artist, this is how all your files would look. You just have numbers and a lot of gibberish in here to be much harder to find. And when you're going through iTunes, you want to find things easily. I have all my Washington Post right there, and I can see which version. This is the rough mix. This is the WAV version, the MP3 version, and that's why you label things accordingly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that track I just recorded. I'm going to hit Command I, or you can also go to File, Get Info. See, Command I. And this tells you everything about that track. This is the size of it. 2 megabytes. Yeah, it's a WAV file, but it was only 8 seconds. So you can still email this. But most songs are like 2 to 3 minutes long, so this would be most likely around 30 megabytes, which would not fit in an email. But other than that, let's go to Info. Let's just put Sonata 1. Hit Tab, Artist, John. Why not John Geary? Okay. Album artist. We don't need to do that. That's kind of redundant. But album, let's put 2013 Musician of the Year. Maybe you want to do 2013 annual auditions. John here may want to have multiple recordings. One is for the audition of the Marine Musician of the Year. The other one could be annual auditions. You never know. That's why you want to be as particular as you possibly can with it. So that's all we're going to put in here. I'm going to hit OK, and as you can see, it's not at the bottom. Now, there's multiple ways I can find him. I can go to Name, Sonata 1, he's there. Now, we go to Artists, Staff Sergeant Norris. Let's go to John. There he is, Sonata 1. And it's very easy to find him now. Other than that, that's all you really need to do. And from here, say he wants to listen to it. You just double click it, and you're done. You can listen to it, and you can actually play that out into the large hall. And it's always a good idea to back this up. You make a CD of it, and you put it in the CD pile, and you back it up into the share drive. And it's already saved here on the computer in 2 different versions. But you definitely want to put it in as many places as you can, because as soon as this computer crashes for whatever reason, we hope it doesn't, you want to have access to it in another way. Okay, and that's pretty much it when it comes to recording. Thank you.